Good morning. We are looking at Unit 9, our statistics unit. So we're going to start by reviewing some measures of central tendency. So let's look at the fill in the blanks up at the top of our note packet. The sum of the data divided by the number of the items in the set, that is our mean. And you can also think of that as the average. When you add all of the data together and then divide by the total number of data that you have, that would be considered our average. I'm going to put a symbol next to the mean. I'm going to draw an X with a bar over it. So when we see this symbol in statistics, it means that we're talking about the mean or the average. The next one is the number or the numbers that occur the most often. So think of most often as our mode. Mode would be the number that occurs the most often. And if there is not a number that occurs more than once, then it would be no mode or none. The middle number, or the mean, or the average of two middle numbers in an ordered set, so that's when the numbers are in order. So we have to list them in order first, and we find that middle number. That is our median. The largest number, subtract the smallest number, is considered the range of our set of data, and then a data value that is much greater or much less than the others in a data set is considered an outlier. So an outlier would be a number that is a lot smaller than or a lot larger than the rest of the numbers that we have in our data. Which measure of central tendency is best to use? So out of our three options, the mean, the median, or the mode, the mean and the median are the most common. So we use the mean when the data does not have an extreme value. So if we do not have outliers, we're going to choose the mean. If we do have an outlier, then we will move to the median as our best measure to use. The mode, we rarely use the mode as our best measure of central tendency. But there are times when we have points that are repeated, a lot of points that are repeated, that the mode might be our first choice. But notice down here it says the mode is rarely chosen as the preferred measure. It's not usually used because the largest frequency of scores might not be at the center. So just because we have a lot of repeated numbers, that might not be the best measure for us. Okay, let's take a look at the examples. Now with this unit, our statistics units, we will be using the graphing calculator. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce how to use the graphing calculator and how we can use that to find our mean, median, mode, and the range we will just calculate. For this first example though, let's go ahead and use the regular calculator just so that you can remember the basics. So our mean is calculated by adding the numbers together. So we're using these y values, which would be this second column. So add 112 plus 101 plus 97 plus 103 plus 110, which is 523, divided by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Gives us 104.6 as our mean or our average. The median, to find the median, we need to list the numbers in order before we can find our middle number. So the smallest number is 97, and then 101, 103, 110, and 112. Since we have an odd number of numbers, we will have an exact median if we count 3 in. That is our middle number, so the median is 103. The mode would be the most common, but since none of these numbers are repeated more than once, we can write none for the mode. The range is the largest number, which is 112. Subtract the smallest number of 97. So our range is 15. And then the last part of this question asks, which measure of central tendency best describes the data? And then we need to explain. So remember, normally I said the mean or the median, just depending on if we have an outlier or not. So when you look at this data, 97 to 112, we don't have anything that is really low. So if we had, say, the number 15, that would be an outlier. If we had a number of 320, that would be an outlier because it's not with the rest of the group. So since we don't have an outlier, we're going to state that the mean is our best since there are no outliers. So the mean would be our best one in this example since there are no outliers. All right, let's flip over our notes to the second side. So example number 2. And this is where I am going to introduce the graphing calculator to help us. So we have the prices of several DVDs. So to put this into our calculator, we are going to turn our graphing calculator on. We're going to hit the stat button for the statistics, and the stat button is located right here. And we need to enter these numbers in. So we need to edit, and you can see it's already highlighted on edit, so hit enter, and it will bring us to list 1. Now I have some values in my list 1 that I need to clear out. Now in order to do that, I'm going to arrow up so that the cursor's on list 1. I'm going to hit clear and enter, and then it will clear out list 1. So you might want to put that in your notes, clear, and then enter. And that will clear the list so that we can enter our values in. So when we type these values in, 22.50, after each one, we're going to hit enter, and you'll notice it will drop down to this next line. We have $21.95, $25, $21.95 again, $19.95, $21.95 again, and $21.50. So let's double check and make sure our data is in correctly. Now, just from entering in these points or these values, I could see that our mode, the most common value that we entered in, was $21.95. So remember, mode is the most common. So to have our calculator calculate some things for us, once we have this entered in, let's hit stat again. So the stat button is right here. And then we need to arrow to the right for calculate. And we want the calculator to calculate one variable statistics. It's already on the one variable statistics, so we hit enter and then enter again. Then the calculator will give us a bunch of information, and if you'll notice, this first thing is the X with the bar over it. The X with the bar over it is our mean. So let's go ahead and write down the mean. And we're going to round to the nearest hundredth on this example. So 22.11. 22.11 for our mean. The median, if you'll use the arrow button on your calculator to arrow down, it gives us the minimum, it gives us the quartile 1. The median is MED. So the median for this is 21.95. The range would be the largest number, which is 25. Subtract the smallest number, 19.95. So we can do that on the calculator. So 5.05 gives us this range. Which measure of central tendency best describes this data? And explain. There are no outliers on this set of data, so let's go ahead and state that the mean is the best, and the reason is because there are no outliers. So the mean is our best because there are no outliers. Okay, going down to example number 3. So back to the calculator, hit Stat. We want Edit, so hit Enter. We need to clear this list. So to clear this list, we arrow up so that the cursor is on list 1. We hit Clear and Enter. Then we can go ahead and enter in these average lifespans. So 35, 30, 50, 200, 30, 70, and 20. And then to have the calculator calculate the one variable statistics, hit Statistics, or the Stat button. This time we want Calculate, so we need to arrow to the right one. And it's already on one variable stats, so hit Enter twice. So our mean is 62.14. The median, if we arrow down, is 35. The mode is the most common, and 30 appears twice. That's our most common. Our range is the largest, which is 200. Subtract the smallest, which is 20. So our range is 180. And then the last part of this, which measure of central tendency best describes the data? Notice in this set, we have most of these in the 30s through 50s, even up to 70, but there's this one that stands out, 200. So since this set has an outlier, we're going to choose the median as the best measure of central tendency. And the reason is 200 is an outlier. Okay, example number 4. So on the graphing calculator, we hit Stat, Edit. We need to clear list 1, so go up to list 1, hit Clear, arrow down, enter in our values, and be careful when you're entering in these decimal numbers. So we have 51.95, 47.50, 46.50, 48.50, 52.95, 78.95, and 39.95 for our list. Once we have our list, go ahead and hit Stat, arrow to the right for Calculate, one variable statistics, so enter twice. And you can see it's going to bring up, here is the mean, rounded to the nearest hundredth, gives us 52.33. So on your rounding, the 8, which is after the 2, rounds that up to a 3. The median is 48.5. None of these numbers, or these values, appear more than once, so none for the mode. The range would be our largest number, 78.95. Subtract 39.95 gives us a value of 39. And then our which measure of central tendency best describes the data. So for right now, we're just using, kind of eyeballing these. This one stands out, $80 compared to that. So we're going to consider that an outlier. So we're going to state that the median is the best because 78.95 is an outlier.